Hello everyone, welcome back to Croc Creek Brewery. Thank you for joining me today. Today we have a recipe that is inspired by another fellow YouTuber whose videos I love. Happy Homestead, James, over in Orkney, Scotland. He makes a ton of homesteading videos, a ton of wine videos. I absolutely love all of his recipes. And he made a wine that I have to try. This is coffee wine. This is a coffee that I picked up at my local grocery store, and it is a very good coffee, a Costa Rican blend, medium roast. This is what we're going to be using today. This is 10.5 ounces. We're going to use the entire thing today in our recipe. Let me go over quickly the other things we're going to need for this recipe. We of course have our 1 gallon carboy, our hydrometer and graduated cylinder. We're going to be using 3.5 cups of sugar. We're going to be using 25 raisins. Of course, 10.5 ounces of coffee. And we're going to be using Lalvin K1V 1116 yeast. That's a champagne yeast with an alcohol tolerance of 21%. So this will be a very dry wine. Now, if you watch any of Happy Homestead's videos, he uses 1 gallon and he uses the imperial system. So it'll be he uses the metric system. Sorry, I'm all confused. He uses the metric system. He uses kilograms. Now I spent about half an hour doing all the math and all the calculations. I'm not very good at math, so it took me a little while. And I had to test all my measurements to make sure I was correct. One imperial gallon, 1 English gallon, is 30% more than 1 US gallon. So, if I'm transferring his measurements over to American measurements, that means I need 30% less of all my ingredients. So, I'm not going to bore you with the numbers, but if he calls for 1 English gallon with 1 kilogram of sugar, that means we need 1 US gallon plus 1.54 pounds of sugar, or 3.5 cups. That's as simple as I can make it. I went through a ton of numbers. I have a little measurement chart here I made in my leather-bound book of recipes. Needless to say, it was complicated, but we did it. So, it's important to understand the differences in measurements in different areas of the world. Just keep in mind that a British gallon is 30% more than an American gallon, and that'll help you along the way. Sorry about the flies, they're annoying today. But right now, I have my large pot heating up with 1.25 gallons of water, because we're gonna lose a lot of room when it comes to adding our sugar and when it comes to adding our coffee. And some of this has been evaporating away. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add our sugar, 3.5 cups. I'm going to rinse this out a little bit to get some of the sugar out. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and mix this through until all the sugar is dissolved. I'm left-handed, so please excuse me. This water is almost at a simmer. The only reason we have heated up this water is to make the dissolving process quicker for the sugar. we're going to basically cold brew this coffee. The water is going to be lukewarm by the time we add our coffee. So it will not be traditionally made the way it is when you pour boiling water over your coffee. It's going to take much longer to brew the coffee, and the coffee is going to stay in there for the entire fermentation process. So we're going to let this water sit for a minute. We're going to make sure we don't have any more sugar that settles to the bottom. If we do, we're going to go ahead and stir it up some more. And we're also going to let this water cool down. It's quite warm right now. It's probably about 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Once this cools down to about room temperature, we're going to go ahead and add our coffee, and we're going to add our raisins and pitch our yeast. So once this cools down, we'll see you in a minute. Okay, so our water has cooled down to room temperature. Our sugar is entirely dissolved. It is time for us to go ahead and add our 10.5 ounces of coffee. This is, like I said, Pete's coffee. This is Costa Rican, medium blend, single origin coffee. We're just going to go ahead and dump in all the grains. And there we go. Let's go ahead and stir that up. Dissolve what we can and mix it thoroughly together. I'm very excited about this coffee. I love my cup of coffee in the mornings when I wake up. It's become a staple of my daily routine. So when I heard about coffee wine, that's a thumbs up in my book. So now we're going to go ahead and transfer this over to our carboy using our funnel, trying to be as delicate as possible. If we don't get all of the grains, that's okay. So we didn't have as much evaporate as I thought we would, but that's okay. We actually filled this up to around the neck of the carboy. Usually this would be a perfect spot for my wines. This is where I usually start them out. I'm actually going to start this one a little less. This one's going to be about halfway between the shoulder and the neck, a little above the 1 gallon marker, if you can see it. So let me go ahead and pour just a bit of this off. I've got just a little bit of our coffee sugar solution in the pot if we need to top this off when we're done. But here's where we're going to start for right now. What we're going to do now is go ahead and add 25 raisins. These will help add body and flavor and a little bit of yeast nutrient to the wine. We're pinching them as we go. Now, you don't have to add exactly 25 to your recipe. That's the beauty of homebrewing. If you want to add a little bit more, experiment with it. See how much body 25 raisins adds. If you want more, add more raisins. If you want less, add less raisins. Homebrewing is not an exact science. It's an experiment. I usually like to follow exact recipes the first time I make it, sometimes with my own flair, such as adding raisins. But it's all one experiment. It's wine that you like to make. So if you have one recipe that turns out bad, figure out how and why it turned out bad, make it differently the next time. Figure out which wines you like to make and make those wines. Which yeasts you like to use. Which types of sugar you like to use. It's all an experiment. Go off of a recipe and then make it your own. I love Happy Homestead's videos, their winemaking tutorials. They make so many garden variety wines out of the things that they grow. So many obscure wines that I've never heard of before in my life. It makes me want to try and make them all. This is actually a wine I've seen several people make on the YouTube channels, fellow brewing channels that I watch. And I'm super excited to see how it turns out. It's going to be really interesting. Now it comes time to go ahead and pitch our yeast. This is a packet that has already been opened. Like I said, it is Lalvin K1116 or K1V 1116 champagne yeast. This generally makes a very dry wine, which is the type of wine that I like to use. If you like sweeter wines, use something like a bread yeast or something like a D47, Lalvin D47 wine yeast is an excellent choice. This is about half a packet, about 1 teaspoon. So there we go. We're going to shake this up and add our airlock, shake it up, and then take a gravity reading, and then put our airlock on it. It smells like coffee in the kitchen. It smells wonderful. The reason I chose a Costa Rican medium blend is since this is my first coffee wine, and I knew that I already loved coffee. I didn't want to go with a light roast. I wanted something with a lot of flavor, but I didn't want a kick in the face that this is coffee. So I didn't choose a dark roast. So I chose something right in the middle, medium roast. Make this a few times. Make you a few gallons using different types of coffee, light roast, medium roast, dark roast, extra dark roast, espresso. I don't know about espresso. That'd be an experiment to try. Have fun with it. Try instant coffee. In fact, if you do try instant coffee, go watch Happy Homestead's review on his coffee wine. He made one with Brazilian medium roast, and he made one with instant coffee, and he has a wonderful review on it. So there we go. All of our yeast is mixed in thoroughly. Let's go ahead and get a gravity reading with our turkey baster. Try to get down below the coffee grains if you can. That may be difficult since they're all homogeneous right now. Look at all those coffee grains. Wow. That goes back in the sanitization bucket. This is a very dark black wine. Wow. It's kind of hard to read it with all the coffee grains. Okay, so we are at 1.060. Now that seems a little low to me. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna let this sit for a bit, let the coffee grinds fall to the bottom, and take a different gravity reading and see if it changes. Sometimes if you question your gravity reading, it's good to take a second opinion. So we'll see you here in a bit. Okay, so we've let our coffee wine sit for about 15 minutes. Most of the coffee grains have settled to the bottom. We have also gone ahead and added another 3 cups of sugar. That brings our total sugar content up to 6.5 cups of sugar. Now I think that may be a little much for this wine. We may have overshot our 10% mark we were going for, but we'll see. I've gone ahead and added my hydrometer. Let's see if we can get it clean of some of these coffee grinds. And let's see where we're at. Whoa. Okay, we way overshot the amount of sugar we needed to add. We probably should have only added about another 1.5 cups to bring us up to our 10 to 12 mark we were going for. We are at 1.130, which is extremely high. That means we're going to have about a 17% alcohol wine. So I'm going to make sure and add that to my label whenever it comes time to bottle this. This is going to be an extremely strong coffee wine. So let's go ahead and add our hydrometer back to our sanitizing liquid. But first, let's rinse off the coffee grains. There we go. So let's go ahead and add our graduated cylinder liquid back to our carboy. Get as many of those grains as you can. We'll have a bit left over. Let's clean off the inside of our carboy best we can. There we go. And don't forget to add your airlock. This is half full of sanitizer liquid. And there we go. We have negative pressure on our airlock. We're going to go ahead and add a label to this. And we will probably rack this in about 10 days to get it off of the coffee grinds. It'll have imbued more than enough flavor at that point, and we'll continue to let it ferment in secondary. So we'll see you then. Thank you for joining me today. We'll see you on the next one here at Croc Creek Brewery. Bye now.